Hi everyone, and welcome to another exciting edition of Prosperity Squad. Today I've got an interesting and useful video for you that should help you figure out what kind of accounts you should have. So my idea actually came from watching a lot of Marie Kondo and I thought, she made me think differently about cleaning up in a way that I hope I could get my listeners and watchers to feel about saving and planning and all the things that most people don't find at all engaging or interesting. So I've got quite a difficult subject area. But I'm going to try and help you figure out where to put your money and how to tell whether you're doing a good job or achieving your goals. And this is a simple strategy that we can try here. So I've actually taken this screenshot here of the tap and the buckets from the Barefoot Investor. I don't know if many of you know who that is, but he is quite a popular advisor in Australia. He wrote a book in instructing people, this is the only book you'll ever need to managing your money. And it's quite a great book, and I do recommend everyone read it. But one of his concepts is setting up your buckets. And he says that you've only got 3 types of money that you really need to keep separate from each other. Obviously you can diversify within each bucket, but it's probably too complex for now. And those buckets are Blow, Mojo, and Grow. I call them different things, but this is essentially the money that you spend, the money that you put aside for unexpected costs, and then the money that you put aside to grow for you long term. I find this strategy to be I find it difficult to separate my assets that I'm growing long term from my intermediate savings goals. So money that you put aside to save for a holiday, for instance. But I can talk to you about the types of accounts you need and why they exist like that. So short-term accounts are very easily accessible. They're linked to a card. You can get that money out of a wall and you can tap that card at a teller anywhere in the country or even overseas, and that money will be usable in basically any currency in the world. It's very liquid, it's called. Now, as you move to the right in these buckets and you go towards Mojo and Grow, it's harder to touch. So for a long-term savings account, let's think of it that way, you have to, before you can spend that money, you have to decide, I want more money from my savings account. Then you have to go into your app, transfer it, and then you can tap your card. Still quite easy to access your money, and it doesn't take very long at all. Most people's savings accounts transfer to their spending account instantaneously, and you have access to that money. That's great. But having access to your money isn't always a good thing. You have access to your money, easy access to your money, and you start thinking to yourself, wait, I've got money. Money does things that I like to do, and I want to buy this or that, or I want to take this holiday, and it's so quick to be able to move that money across and hit the button that you end up making choices that you not necessarily would do otherwise. You take some time to go, well, actually I spent a whole lot on restaurants this month, and maybe I shouldn't buy this. Maybe I shouldn't upgrade my phone right away. I should wait until it breaks, or wait another 3 months. Something like that can be hugely beneficial over the long term. And if you're leaving that money somewhere where it takes a long time to get out, or it makes it difficult to get that money back. So for instance, you buy a share, you've got that money, first you have to transfer it. You have to sell the share, you have to wait for that share to settle, which takes 2 or 3 days. That money then comes into your trading account, which is not accessible. You've got no card linked to that account. You then have to transfer that money to your main spending bank, which is probably separate, and so on and so on. That gives you 4 days between the time where you decide, I need money, and I'm going to spend my money. The more money you keep in this illiquid state, the more likely you'll be to stick to your savings goals. So you send money away from yourself. You go, I don't need that money now. That money's for later. And I really, even if that account gets to 2 or 3,000, it's really, you shouldn't. That doesn't mean that you just blow that. You have to decide what is really my goal here, and to have money working for you all of your life is the end game, the best outcome. Eventually, you get so much money working for you that you won't need to work yourself. That's the goal. That's the dream. And we all want to retire at 45. This is a way that you can actually do that. So, diversified investments. So that's what I said. Long-term savings should be diversified investments. Difficult, costly to liquidate, and time. So putting time between yourself and your money. And money that goes into the grow bucket should stay there until you need that money to achieve your goals. So if you want to buy a house, that's your ultimate goal. I want to do nothing else but live in my own house. Then that's the only reason that money comes out. Let's say if your goal is I want to buy a house in 4 or 5 years, but I also want to take a holiday every couple of years. That means that you can't drain all of that money to take a holiday. Some of that money belongs to your future. If you want to save for a holiday, you should put it into the Mojo account. And that keeps it separation in your mind is really, really good because it helps you psychologically. It makes it easier to do what you're trying to do. And I know a lot of people struggle with trying to keep themselves honest and keep themselves disciplined to achieve their goals. So, Marie Kondo, your budget. The life-changing magic of tidying up your budget. So my proposal to all of you here is that if you haven't done so before, that you take time to look at everything you've spent over a set period of time. And we want it to be fixed to a 3, 6, or 12-month period. Because that makes it easier to annualize and explain the data. I spent more on car maintenance because I needed to get a part replaced this year. That doesn't mean that you're going to continuously spend that all year. So you can adjust it, move things down and around, things like that. Then you decide if you're keeping enough of your salary to justify the time you spend working. Now, this is something I talk to people about all the time. If you're young and you're putting your manual labor, your arms, your back, and your brain into your work to earn money, you can't do that forever. There's going to be a time where your body fails you, where your mind fails you, and you're going to need to have money set aside for yourself in addition to the pension to give yourself the life you want. And that could happen earlier, later. You could need money far sooner than you ever expected. You could have a child. You could be unexpectedly get married to the love of your life, and you want to buy a house with them. You can't predict, but you can be prepared. So, the rule of thumb for me, and a good rule of thumb for you, is 40% of your money should go towards your future. Growing your money. That money does not get splurged on impulse buys. It doesn't get used for expensive gifts for your girlfriend. When money goes to your growing account, you don't have any money anymore. It will take you 4 or 5 days minimum to get your hands on it. So you can't tell someone, I've got a bit of cash, I could probably do this, that, or the other. Unless you've got money in your splurge account or your living account. You have to say, I'm actually broke, because spending any more would mean that I'm not doing what I set out to do. So you have to be disciplined about this. 20% of your money I recommend to go into your splurge account, to use for luxuries, to spend on, taking your girl out for dinner, or buying yourself the new Xbox game you've been waiting for, etc., etc. And for me, it's much more powerful to have an allocation to splurging. So people, a lot of my peers and people my age I've been talking to about this feel like, I want to live. I want to experience life while I'm young. I want to do X, Y, Z. And that is where the majority of your money goes. 40% of it you spend on your lifestyle, in day-to-day things, groceries, utility bills, whatever. 20% goes to splurging. You're spending 60% of what you bring in. But if you can put 40% away for something bigger, buying yourself property, buying yourself investments that will give you income later on, or let's say your goal is to travel as much as you can. You know that Even when I need to buy a house, I'll be okay. My parents are set to help me out, no problem. And but I still want to put aside money so I can grow it and take enough trips. So 40% of your money should be going towards that purpose. And you don't want to get to 40 and realize, well, the only thing really that's been growing for me in my life is superannuation. Because that's mandated savings that the government has imposed on everybody to make sure that money goes aside for retirement. That money can't be used for anything else apart from retirement, or if you put that money in voluntarily, it can be used to buy your first home. But mainly for retirement. Unless all you want to do is have a good retirement, you're going to need money before then. You're going to need to buy your wife a house. You're going to need to put your children through the school that you want them to go to. You're going to have to take holidays. You're going to have to replace your car. There's going to be things that cost money in the future, and you have to be putting aside dollars from your pay now while you have a surplus for that purpose later on. I mean, we spend so much time, so much of our lives are spent working. Are you really not going to take anything off the table for yourself that's saying, I'm not spending this, I'm putting it aside to create something for myself? That's really where you're trying to head. So I've put together here my savings buckets. I've used my approximation of my actual income to show you how I saved when I was looking to buy my property. Ended up saving close to $100,000 in 2.5 years. It took a long time. Get rich slow is the key. So from my $2,000 after tax per fortnight, 40% goes to my Blow account, straight into my Orange Everyday account for spending, for groceries, for lifestyle, all of that. And $400 goes straight into my Splurge account. Now this money can be accumulated for something big, or it can be spent immediately to try and make maybe you have something that you want to do in that fortnight. Maybe you want to go to the movies, you want to spend a whole night drinking with your friends. That $400 is there, and once it's gone, you don't take it out of your Grow bucket. So I have an Orange Everyday account linked to an ING Savings Maximizer. So there's my 2.3% interest rate here. So this is my high interest medium-term savings account, and that's where I'll accumulate things that weren't for my property. And this is where I'd spend things on my day-to-day bills, my motor vehicle, my gas, etc. Now my Grow bucket has two components. I used superannuation. I put $15,000 a year into my super fund. Now the reason for that was because I wanted to use the First Home Super Saver scheme. Once you put money in super, it's very hard to get that out. You can only get it out for your house. You're buying a house, it takes 25 days, the money's in your account. But for any other reason, you have to leave it in there until you're 65. So it makes it a very excellent place for discipline. I have the worst savings discipline I think I've ever experienced. The only reason I've gotten good at it is because I forced myself. I put the money away somewhere I can't grab it, and I didn't want to sell my shares because I'm like, these shares are going to go up. I'm not selling them now. So of my $2,000, I'd send $800 into split that between my super and my shares. So $550 to super and $250 to my share trading account. That would happen at the very start of my pay cycle. And then the remaining $800 would stay in my Orange Everyday after I transferred that $400 to my Maximizer. So I knew where my money for spending for lifestyle was, I knew what I could afford to splurge, and I knew that I was achieving my savings goals. If you can commit to your buckets and keep that money somewhere where it takes at least 3 or 4 days to get that money into your pocket for spending, it's much, much easier. So you're putting structure around your savings goals. Without structure, I would be lost, and I'm hoping that the structure may be able to help you guys. I found excellent savings accounts these days. I found one that pays 3.85%. if you're under 25 and until you're 25 years old. So that's a crazy rate in this day and age. So you want to be putting money away longer, diversify, spread it in so many buckets that you can't possibly pull it all together quick enough to spend. Make it hard for yourself to spend your money, but also keep yourself with that layer of safety, which is what your splurge account is for. So, I wanted to show you what the grow targets really mean. So the 40% that I was talking about in the grow bucket includes investments that you're spending money on, additional repayments to paying off your home, money spent purchasing shares of ETF-style products, and money set aside for reaching your long-term goals. So I put your there because it's personal, right? So if the reason that you're trying to grow your assets is because you want to have fun until you're getting a $4 million inheritance, in 10, 15 years. So you don't need to worry about money, but very few of us are in that position. So you should all be growing, you should all be putting aside 30 to 40% of your after-tax income for growth purposes. And if you can't do that, there may be reasons why. You have unordinarily high expenses. You've got a whole lot of debt that you're paying off. Look at the reasons why you can't get to that 40% target. Are they legitimate? Can they be avoided? Is there any way that you can increase that margin? Keep more of your money that you're working for. You're trying to get wealthy, the only two options that you have are earn more or keep more. And because earning more we're already all striving to do that. But keeping more of your money is something that you can improve with a little bit of structure. So, I'd like to say, the reason I included this slide was that I know quite a few people who say, I'm fantastic at saving. I don't need any help with saving. I can save up 1,000 or 2,000. And I'm saying, all right, well, what happens when you get that 1,000 or 2,000? And say, oh, well, then I book a holiday. Like, you're not trying to find goals to match how much money you have. You're trying to use your money. You're trying to pick goals first and then use your money to achieve them. Instead of just being like, I have a couple grand, what can I do? And that's when things start getting really dangerous for us as accumulators. We have to be going forward. So that's my presentation. The way that I built my savings plan personally was to use my Prosperity, which is a data aggregator, pulls all your information in one spot and allows you to allocate from there. If anyone needs any more help with implementing the savings plan or just wants to discuss what they've been struggling with, please post on the group and see if we can get a little conversation going. And yeah, good to talk to you all again, and please comment in this video if you have any suggestions for future content. Cheers.